Hello everyone, welcome to the Siemens DASW webinar on build groundbreaking packaging machinery using the digital twin. So to begin with, we will discuss about some key trends that we see happening in the packaging machinery and also in general with machinery. So to highlight some of the key trends, the first one that is in every machine builders is the smarter machines. As you all aware, since COVID, the acceleration and the adoption of smarter machines is increasing across industries, across nations, and this is a trend that will continue to evolve at a faster pace. And one of the one of the analyst tech jury predicts like nearly 84% of the human workforce could be replaced by robots in less than 6 years. Okay, so this is coming to machineries, all machineries, including packaging machinery. The next key trend that is very specific to packaging machines, which are mainly used for food and beverage industry. As you know, the material, the plastics used in the packaging are getting more and more advanced to be an eco-friendly, sustainable material. And there is a lot of research happening around that area. And to give this amount spent, nearly 200 billion has been spent by packaging firms in order to reduce the environmental impact of the packaging materials used in the machines. And it is very important for new packaging machines to packaging material using sustainable material, eco-friendly material. So this is an important trend, and it's also only going to augment going forward. The third trend, which is about customization. As you know, packaging machines incur a lot of cost. So when a machine can be used to package using multiple materials for multiple products, it's a big game changer for the users of the machine. And the survey, one of the survey predicts nearly 5.1% CAGR growth from 2025 to 2030. And most of this growth comes on the customization aspect of the packaging. The slide also shows the figure, so it is supposed to go to roughly 50 millions. The next slide, what we are trying to show here is some of the common challenges the users of the packaging machineries they face. This comes from a survey of the CPG companies. The first one is the general wear and tear. Of course, the older the machine, the wear and the tear of the machine has a direct impact on the productivity of the machine. So that is the key challenges the users of the packaging machineries they face. The next one is the operator error. As you know, when we move from one packaging material to another packaging material, or a smaller package to a larger package, of course, a lot of things need to come together to make it work. And if the operator does any mistakes, that can also jeopardize the productivity. The next two things, the two key challenges which I would like to highlight is product switching. So in some instance, it's also necessary to change certain components or elements in the packaging machinery, and that can also cause issues at the startup phase. And last but not least is the component failure. So the packaging machines has a lot of actuators, electric motors, welders, and converting mechanism, etc. So the failure by this component, which is also roughly 11%, is also a big concern for the users of the packaging machinery. So given these challenges and the key trends that we observe in the packaging machinery, the next big question that comes to all packaging machinery companies is how can they respond to this changing market trends, a faster, quicker launch product to the market in a very responsive way. Next, how can you gather information about the usage of the machine? Do the customer appreciate the new features that has been delivered to the machine? Is the features have been heavily used? How can they collect, given the customization and the smart capabilities built into build the machine manufacturers able to collect this information. And last but not least, how to adjust the packaging industry holistically for sustainability, at the same time keeping the food and the beauty products that they protect in a safety and a healthy way until they are used and disposed of. Okay, so collectively, the challenges that we are trying to solve, how can we change these challenges and problems into opportunities? Now, to answer this question, we have Giulio Comauli. He brings a lot of expertise working with packaging machineries across Europe and also across the world. So here is the key challenge that the packaging industry faces. So can you enlighten us how to turn these problems into a competitive advantage or opportunities for packaging machinery manufacturers?
Thank you, Rajesh. And let me start with an example. You told them from Italy, but currently I'm in Belgium. So this is a perfect example to introduce the topic. So if you need to move in your city or in your village, maybe a bicycle can be enough. But if you need to reach another city, probably you need to move with a car, or as I did to come here to Belgium, I have to use both the car and the plane. Why this example? This example is to show that you cannot solve all the different needs and issues with a single tool. So what we want to show is that there exists different tool and different methodology depending on the need and on the specific challenge. So there is no universal magic to solve all the different needs. Need to select the right methodology and tool to address a specific requirement. Also due to the complexity that we are facing daily on the packaging machines. So the solution is to approach a different requirement and try to solve them in an holistic way, or in parallel or separately, depending on the different situations. So this is just to, let's say, give a global picture. And then let me start with an example to show you how we can help you to address the different challenge you face during the product development cycle. When we talk about the product, we talk about the machine that you build to package something. You will see during the presentation, there are examples with filling machine, wrapping machine, and bottle machine. So there are many different applications in this packaging area. We try to give a general overview. And you can see on the top a typical process made by 5 phases. Concept design phase, in which, in principle, you try to translate the market requirements coming from your marketing, sales department, or industrial research into, let's say, engineering functional objective to manage the required performance. You can do that starting from a competitive product, using existing measurement from the predecessor machine. And you can try also through system simulation, to combine different architectures, trying to reuse as much as possible existing component or subsystem, or selecting new more performant or more efficient, and you define the architecture. Then in the second phase, you need to define the system by selecting the right actuator, testing the right pneumatic, any other part of the machine that you need to design. And at this level, it is also important to start thinking about the control strategy to make your machine more performant and efficient at the same time, consuming less energy. To do that, we have tools working on at system level, even before any CAD is available. And then we enter the third phase, that is the more traditional, let's say, simulation area, where you apply the typical 3D simulation tools and testing solution in 2 different phases. First of all, you can use a simulation in a front-loading phase. In principle, you bring the simulation capability at design level in your CAD environment so that your CAD decisions are supported by early simulation analysis, maybe to verify if the shape of a part of your machine can assure the right cooling to the electronic included in the machine, or these kind of applications. And then after that, you go in the more, let's say, advanced analysis to refine the performance of the machine and adopting all the different technology, the system simulation, the CFD analysis for fluid and thermal simulation, and the 3D mechanical analysis for multi-body analysis, mechanism verification, durability analysis, noise and vibration analysis, acoustic prediction, and always with the test in parallel to make those assumptions in simulation very realistic. So the trend today is to go in the direction of zero prototype, limit the number of prototypes, but this does not mean you can avoid test. Test is still important. It's still important in the validation and verification phase, or as we explained in the beginning, at the benchmark level. So, okay, limit the number of tests, use a more efficient test to make your simulation model more realistic. Finally, we are ready to integrate the machine and to deliver it, but we can already make some verification through a virtual commissioning process, verifying if the machine connected with the automation will work. There are specific connectors to, let's say, to connect the virtual model to the automation and verify your control strategy, or even to anticipate operators training before having the machine in line. And this allows to have your machine producing since time zero when installed in the factory. And of course, again, here you have test supporting simulation for some physical commissioning, troubleshooting activity, or further service activity. And the last part is how to connect and bring the value of simulation in operations. So through an executable digital twin, is it possible to have a model supporting operation, for instance, measuring virtual sensors from the model while running in parallel and real time with the machine, measuring something that is not easy to measure or completely unlike, I don't know, the web tension in the plastic or ecosystem material, and also to verify if the behavior of the machine is in line with the manufacturing expectation. So let me say that this is the global picture of, let's say, an engineering workflow to support packaging machine builders.
Giulio, the analogy that you gave using bicycle or car or aircraft, depending upon the distance we used to travel, that's very, very interesting. And similarly, what you are showing here is when people building machines, they go from concept design to final of the machine, right? So you are trying to give like an overview how to approach different challenges at different phases while realizing a packaging machine. But could you also go a bit deep, give concrete example from each phases and what is the challenge the packaging machinery manufacturers address at each of these phases? That will be really helpful.
Let me start to give some more information for the single phases, just from the concept design. So the important point here is that market requirements. These are the market requirements that our sales department and marketing division has identified, and B is to address a new country or a new zone with our machines, or to make machines more efficient in terms of energy consumption. So at this point, it's important that engineers we can convert those market requirements into engineering requirements. So what does it mean to deliver more performant machines or more efficient machine? Means that we need to work on the engineering part, creating and increasing the throughput speed while reducing the energy consumption. These are more specific objectives we have. So, and the verification of the architecture must be verified. Different operational scenarios. So, how it behaves, new standards imposed in a new country, or maybe start to think how to connect mechanical and electronic part, or even the control strategy to allow those performance. So it is important that at this level we select the best architecture depending on the, let's say, depending and exploring different scenarios. To better explain this, I have a reference from a customer. The customer in Italy is a leader in filling machines, mainly used for cosmetic application. But they adopted the system simulation in the concept design to determine the optimized pressure to allow the desired flow rate for the fluid they have to manage to fill the small cosmetic bottles. And in this direction, they were able to adapt the valves to assure the filling quality. But what is really important, that increasing the accuracy, working at valve level, they also obtain an important benefit by reducing the number of prototypes to test those different scenarios. And they also decrease the need for service during warranty and maintenance activity. So that's a nice example, just to explain how important it is to approach the design of the new machine or the retrofit of the machine, taking into account a combination of different subsystems and different scenario in which you will operate. So the second part is system definition. So is in principle the multi-physics representation and refinement of your architecture, considering all the components and subsystems which are part of your machines, still in a, let's say, no CAD environment. Important this phase to evaluate how we can reuse existing technology or existing subsystem we have, for which we are very, very good in terms of performance, when we want to reuse that technology or that subsystem in a new concept machine. It is very important nowadays to be able to do those things. You can start also thinking about the general control strategy to apply if you want to offer a better machine in terms of production and energy consumption. To better explain this point, I will show you a video from a colleague of mine working in the factory automation when they needed to, let's say, apply automation to the physical machines. And he can explain the advantage of adopting simulation in the early phase.
Production machines, technically complex and also space-intensive systems. That means long development times and a high invest for prototypes. To overcome these challenges, we need to talk about the latest simulation approaches. Testing these systems virtually with a digital twin just requires suitable simulation models capable of replicating the technical operating principles. That is possible today. These so-called multi-physics models, built with SimCenter AIMASIM, are able to precisely replicate the dynamic web tension behavior of continuous web handling in converting applications, as well as entire machines. To reduce complexity and support customers with leaner and more precise engineering workflows, the Siemens digitalization experts can supply customers with tailored simulation models of their machines as standalone functional mock-up units, which include the multi-physics behavior. All customers create their own models and incorporate it into their digital twin. By integrating these FMUs now seamlessly into SIMIT, our virtual commissioning solution, it enables the customer securing the automation program execution asynchronously with a virtual machine model. In our example, it offers transparency to the automation engineers, as any required system variables like tensions, speeds, torques, etc. are accessible throughout the whole testing process. Furthermore, the customer can parameterize the model, simulating different machine variants or control structures, as well as the impact of new product material by just realizing test runs in a virtual environment. Imagine the possibilities in terms of gain flexibility for an adaptive production without the necessity to invest into real prototypes.
So you have seen the point of view of the application engineer that indeed explained the end-to-end process and the advantage of adopting simulation since the beginning and up to the manufacturing phase. So he extended indeed the value of simulation also to virtual commissioning and operations, but it gives the point of view of the application and not of the software engineer as we are to offer the right solution to reduce prototype number. So let's move to the point 3. So
to me, what is interesting is until now we haven't talked about a CAD model or anything. Yeah, we are still talking about the multi-physics model without the CAD geometry, without talking the details of the geometry. We are looking at the requirements and how to match the product architecture, its subsystem to meet the requirements, right?
Yes, correct. So indeed, what we have done in phase 1 and 2 does not require any CAD, correct. Here in phase 3, we are in the more traditional simulation area where you combine the CAD design with the simulation tools and system modeling and testing. So you have a representation on the bottom of the slide of the different phases. As I told in the beginning, you can anticipate simulation into the design phase using some specific tool for thermal analysis, flow analysis, structural analysis within the CAD environment, just to help the designer to take the right decision earlier and to limit the cost and the modification requirements and whatever you can imagine when you discover that the problem is on the final product. You can also assess at this level the controls and the detailed system simulation while you use CAD in your mechanical simulation to evaluate forces, vibrations, dynamic behavior of your machines, I don't know, acoustic radiation, whatever you can simulate in a 3D environment. Always supported by an efficient test activity. So it means that I don't need to measure the full prototype, but I just need to measure some part just to be sure that my model is behaving as the component and to adjust my simulation assumption to replicate fear of the machine. To show, we say, first step, how we can include simulation in the CAD phase. In the example you see on the screen, there is a thermal analysis of a welding drum in a packaging machine. So it's important that during design, you define the right position, you have the right heating cycle, and the flow of this of the hot part are distributed along the machine in the right way. So this is something that you can already do in the environment by, we say, front-loading simulation. So anticipating the adoption of simulation in a very early stage. So the designer using workflow and specific simulation task to confirm and validate their design decision. You see how the integration between the CAD environment and simulation environment is crucial when you need to verify a modification on the machine. In this case, it's a very simple modification. The addition of in this quality test machine to verify the leakage. So if we add a new component, a new mass in the machine, we need to have the right answer very early in the design. For this specific topic, you will have a new poll. How familiar are you with the front-loading simulation? I give you some time to answer, and then I continue. So in this phase, it's also important to summarize physics we can simulate to represent the real world complexity. You see, there are many different aspects, from the model analysis, behavior, the term analysis, the analysis of the kinematics and dynamics of the different component and moving parts, but also electromagnetic emission. Then you can also model the materials, so the molecular part of the story, to better identify mechanical parameter of the material you use in the production. And of course, all of these things are fully supported by simulation and process and data management tool that are sure to have always the right model at the right time. Here you see where we represent the geometry and the dynamic of the machine during the operation in a virtual environment. You will see on the bottom, you see the stress, the value, the stress value along the time. And at the same time, you see the mechanism moving. So you can correlate the different phases of the production in a visual way while looking at the different physics and component behavior. I just told before that we also have the tools to help you in modeling materials. Of course, this is more for the material producers, but it's also important for the packaging machine builder, because they have to manage those material. And sometimes it's very important to be able to calculate and obtain mechanical properties and predict the behavior of the material using those properties in the more standard and finite element analysis simulation, to take into account how we need to modify the machine to manage a new material. This is very important nowadays, because there is a lot of companies moving and exploring new solutions to replace plastic in the food packaging industry. So just to give you the information that we can also manage the molecular part, reducing time and cost, of course, exploring new innovative solution, but also be sure that we have approved the solution. And here is time for showing you another video where we explain how test can help you during the product development.
SimCenter SCADA Success allows you to connect different types of sensors to easily assess and analyze how noise, vibration, durability, and rotational speed phenomena are interrelated. The small and portable unit is battery operated for full-day autonomy and securely saves all measured data on a local memory card. And not only that, it fits in your pocket. It can be pre-programmed for specific measurement tasks and shipped to a local operator as a more cost-effective alternative to sending an actual engineer. The SimCenter SCADA Success can also be combined with a binaural headset for high-quality binaural recording, replay, and sound quality analysis. After finishing the test, engineers can further analyze the acquired data in SimCenter Test Lab. Next to the time data, the recorded video can be displayed and replayed in order to better understand different dynamic phenomena correlations as a function of time. Further processing into frequency, octave, and order domain helps understand underlying phenomena, making SCADA Success the Swiss pocket knife for noise and vibration measurements.
So important to have an efficient system, a small system to measure many different quantities in an efficient way, very simple to use, and to help the simulation activity in this way. So when we define completely the design of the system, we have the complete analysis and the design is ready. Now it's time, in principle, to create a machine, to build a machine and to deliver it, and install and start using that after the training to the operator. But what we can do at this level is still on the virtual model, we can anticipate those verification and connect the virtual model of the machine to the virtual or physical PLCs that will control the machine, verify how it works, verify how the modification will affect the retrofit machine, or even verify a new installation scenario, or verify with the operator how to operate on the control unit to use the machine, to start the machine, to stop, simulate failures. So all the different possible simulation activity tasks that can be anticipated before delivering the physical machine and facilitating and shortening the on-site commissioning. So this is a big impact. It has a big impact on time and cost, of course. So this is the example of the customer. This German customer is producing those small sachets for what they are doing nowadays. They are exploring the adoption of new eco-sustainable material to replace the plastic container. And of course, the first stage is to be able to simulate the material into at concept design, trying to verify which part of the existing machine can be reused, which require a modification. And then when the machine is ready, they can virtually commission the machine and the introduction in the production line of their customer to verify how the machine will behave with the new material during the real packaging activity. And the next for this customer will be to bring the simulation in operations, to be able to virtually, so from the model that run in parallels with the machine, to measure real time the web tension, to control how the new material is behaving, and to be able to control the machine and avoid any stop and costly downtime. And this is to show how the system for testing is used during the physical commissioning or during the service. This is a well-known customer producing a plate for printing, usable also in the packaging application for label and the kind of things, but very similar to any other packaging and machine builder application. So they have those very productive system distributed all around the world to allow the service engineer to intervene in case of problem and measure what the base specialist is asking to measure, putting a transducer here with, just to have the technician on site to have a start and stop of the measurement, and then transfer file through the internet to the expert to identify the root cause. So there is a big improvement in the on-site intervention, also time and not only cost, and then a better development, because those data are used also in the development, those data coming from service, and also a big improvement in the need for equipment and training. At this point, we should have a last video to introduce the last phase.
So Jane asks her head of operations to visit the plant and find out what the problem might be. He finds that the pasteurization machine is making the orange juice too hot and causing it to spoil. Unfortunately, this isn't the first time this has happened. Jane needs to figure out how to fix and prevent this issue in the future. Issues with production machinery can lead to factory downtime and material waste, costing companies both time and money. What if it was possible for the pasteurization machine to determine exactly what was wrong and how to fix it by itself? What if all the machines in the production line would behave as expected and mitigate issues before they arose? That is where an executable digital twin, or XDT, can help. An XDT is a true combination of the digital and physical worlds. It lets you use digital twin models to control and improve behavior, predict performance, and optimize operations of a real asset, process, or system. Simulation or test-based models are packaged and deployed in a standalone, executable form containing a physics-based description of the system and the solver necessary to execute it. This XDT is deployed alongside or as part of the physical system, enabling a live connection between the virtual and real assets. It provides timely insights by leveraging rapid modeling techniques, including reduced order modeling and artificial intelligence.
So the video was, what I want to highlight is the fact that you can adopt this methodology in any operation condition. You have seen in the video the wind turbine application, but in any industrial application can be used. What is really important to highlight at this level is that you can create your simulation model. If it is system simulation, normally it does not require any reduction. It can run easily real time in parallel with the machine. In case of 3D model for advanced mechanical simulation or thermal simulation in a filling machine or mixing, you need to reduce into a real-time model. And then you can install this model into an edge device that is on the machine itself. A model running in parallel, you can easily measure a measurable point, increasing the knowledge of your machine or taking under control some key. And at the same time, you can use the model behavior, which is your expected behavior, as the reference to control, to monitor the machine during operations. And an example we have is coming from a real case we analyzed. This video is showing the implementation on a real packaging machine. You see the welding drums of these machines installed to weld the different layer of the sachet. And the system model simulation is used to take under control the temperature distribution along the drum to be sure that your welding process is always performant, that you don't have any failure in the welding procedure because the temperature is not homogeneous along the welding unit. So this is a nice example combining the simulation capability with the automation devices and other like the PLC and the edge computer to have this capability exported to manufacturing level. So we are at the end of journey. We started with the example of the transportation mode, and now we close the journey with a complete slide just to fix the concept that there is no right, let's say, universal and magic tools to solve all the challenges. There are different tools to help you in the different phases. In principle, let's say, a way and a number of different methodology and tools to help you managing the complex end-to-end development cycle. I hope we were able, through the customer example, the reference we have showing use cases, how is possible. Of course, we are available to further discuss those topics. And let me also give you a reminder that we already had another webinar in the past. You will receive the link to this webinar, specific in the food processing and packaging application, where Tetra Pak was presenting as testimonial the adoption of simulation in the development cycle machines. So now I think it's time for Q&A. Caroline?
Yes, perfect. Okay. Thank you so much, Giulio, and thank you, Rajesh, for this great presentation. Thank you again. I think we have a final polling question. Just let me push it to our audience, and this way I will let you time to have a quick sip of water. I know you spoke a lot, Giulio, so if you don't mind just having time to drink a bit of water, and this way I can just remind people that you can, sorry, you still have time to type your questions. So in the Q&A box, so don't hesitate. We already have some of them here. We have a few minutes left, so unfortunately, we won't be able to take all of your questions, but be reassured that they don't go to waste. So you will receive complete feedback from our speakers today. You will receive your answer in the upcoming days directly to your email box. All right, so with that, if you are ready, Giulio, I see first question we have. So you showed interesting applications about converting. How easy is to build the model with the simulation tool shown in your presentation?
Yes, it is very much connected with the first video, with the presentation of our automation colleague talking about the use of simulation in the packaging application. Let me a couple of slides to show you how it works, because it was visible, but not, of course, we had no specific zoom on that. Let me use this slide to explain that. You have a converting machine. If it is for packaging or other application, it's not important at this level. What is important is that in the multi-physics system simulation environment, where we can simulate different physics like thermal, hydraulic, mechanical, and whatever, we have a very specific 2D library for converting component. So you can select the different component from the library, one to each other, to build the structure of your converting machines so that you can putting together winders, dancers, rollers. You can already verify the web tension, the torque progression, and act, let's say, you can do some what-if analysis. What happens if something happens? How I can predict the performance of the machine if I adopt this or that combination of different components. So I think that this can better explain the use. So the library are there already, the components are there, you just need to drag and drop and maybe to adapt the parameter to your specific size, weight, and speed conditions. But then you have very important prediction and time function to verify if your machine will work as expected already in the definition phase. Of course, you use the same model during the virtual commissioning, and you can also use the same model in the XDT when you want to measure the web tension during operation. You can measure the web tension from the model.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Giulio. Let me check the time. All right, final question before we wrap up. So it reads, what about the broader adoption of simulation and test to optimize sustainability, development time, and quality?
Yes, this is the question that probably synthesized the complete, because it refers to the global adoption of different tools, managing different challenges in parallel, multi-attribute, and let's say balancing the different performance. You know that when you increase the speed in your machine, typically the precision will decrease. We want to predict how fast we can go without affecting the quality or without requiring more energy to run the machines. So this is an important aspect that maybe I can show you with an example I have. Let me go and try to see if I can find it. Yes, here it is. This is a customer of us that included a digital twin approach, so the complete representation of their machine in a paper converting machine. I think is a good example. They adopted the system simulation in combination with other automation tools like CMIT and the PLC SIM Advanced to create the model of the machine, exploring the different technique architecture based on the physical behavior of the model. They wanted to obtain a functional model that represents virtually the real machine and verify which are the best decision and selection, increasing the know-how within the simulation engineering department, looking at different physics at the same time, virtually commissioning the machine, and then obtaining, let's say, a more sustainable solution with a new machine that consumes less energy and produce less waste during production. That is another part of the sustainability machine, without having a real prototype yet. So you see that it's possible to have a global adoption of that through this multi-physics approach and to transfer requirements into functional decision, functional selection, and what-if analysis. I think this is probably my last answer for today, because we reached the end of the hour.
Thank you for watching. To learn more about this topic, check out the links in the description. And if you enjoyed what you saw, like the video and subscribe to the channel.